Hi and welcome to part 14 of building CRM using Django and Vue. Today we're going to finish the implementation of Stripe. First you need to add some new fields to the database, specifically to the team model. So if I find a team app here and models.py, I want to add a few new fields here. I want one field for keeping track of the status of the plan, if it's active or if it's cancelled. So plan status equals models.char field, and I want this to be max length of 20 because we don't need any more here. And I want this to be a choice. So choices equals choices plan status. Default is plan active, like that. So as you can see here I get this error, and that's because these are not defined up here. So I need to fix that now. Plan active equals active, and plan cancelled equals cancelled. And then I need to create this tuple of statuses. So now it's a tuple, and then I first pass in active, and then the cancelled. Great, so now I don't get any errors here. And then I want one field for keeping track of the customer ID which this team will get in Stripe. So Stripe customer ID equals models.char field, and the max length can be 255 because this can be a little bit long, but this should be more than enough. Blank equals true and null equals true, because if you're a free team then you don't have this. And I want one for Stripe subscription ID. This is to keep track of if the subscription is valid and similar. There. So now I can save this and go to the command line and stop the web server. And then run make migrations to create the migrations file and run migrate. Perfect. Got no errors, and the database is now updated, so we can run the server again. So if I now go back to the to-do list, you can set this task to done. The next step now is to download and install Stripe Cli. We need this to test webhooks from Stripe, so when we send the payment to Stripe, we need to get information back to us from Stripe and check that everything is okay. So if I go to this address, you'll get a description of how this is done. So install Stripe Cli. As you can see here, you just download this and then untar it or unzip it. And I've already done this. So if I just go to CD downloads, you'll see that I have a Stripe. This is executable file. And then I need to log in, which should be the next step here. Stripe login. Sorry, /stripe login. And then I hit enter to open in the browser. Great, so now I got this here, and this is the same code as you can see here. And if I click allow access, you may now close this window and return to the CLI. So now this key, got this here, will be okay for the next 90 days. I don't need to keep track of this right now. And then I need to set up this CLI to forward requests to our API. We'll do that by saying /stripe listen /forward to, and then the address to the server, which you can see here is 127.8000/API/v1/stripe/webhook. I will create this page soon. So if I hit enter now, you see that it wants me to upload, but I don't need to do that. But here I got the webhook signing secret. I need to add this to the settings.py file. So go back here and I will say Stripe webhook key equals, and paste it in there and save. So now that should be okay. And I will come back to creating the hook later when we come to that part. So now I can set this task to done, and then it's finish Stripe implementation. It's a very big task, but I will try to split it up in pieces anyway. So the first thing you need to do is to go to plans.vue. Here we need to change this subscribe function here, because you can't just tell the server to update our plan for free. So comment out this for now. Then you can create a new axios.post, and this should go to API/v1/stripe/create checkout session. And this is information we send to Stripe from the server, and then we get information back from them. Now we pass in data so we know which plan we have selected, if it's the big team or the small team. And then we get response back from our server. Response. Oops, here is something wrong, like that. And then in here we can say console.log response, just so we can see what we get from Stripe. And return this.stripe, which is a reference to the one we initialized here. Dot redirect to checkout, and then we pass in something called session ID, response.data.session ID. This we'll get from our server, and we will create this after we finish with this. And if we get any errors, we just want to show that for now. Catch error console.log error and save. So now everything there is okay, but we still need to do some more things in the backend before we can start testing. And in the settings.py I need to add 2 more variables here. I want one variable to where we are going to be sent after the payment is finished, and if we cancel the payment. Front end website success URL equals http:// localhost 8081, which is my address right now, dashboard/team/plans/thank-you. And this page we created in one of the previous parts, so it will be sent in here to plans/thank-you. And then you have the front and not success but cancel. This is if you start the payment process but click cancel, then we just send you back to the plans page like that. And then we are going to continue. So now I want to create this function which will call Stripe for us and get the session ID back, and then we know that everything is okay. So if you now find team/views.py, we can go to the bottom and edit here. At API view, here we want to get post data, def create checkout session, and then we pass in the request parameter. And here we want to initialize Stripe, but we haven't imported Stripe, so we can do that first. So if you just go to the top, we can import JSON, because we're going to need that, and import Stripe. Great, so now we have Stripe imported, and we can scroll down to the bottom again. And then in here we say stripe.api key equals settings dot stripe secret key. So now we use the secret key instead of the one we publish and can show in the front end. Now we want to get the data from the front end, and we do that by saying json.loads, because we just want to pass this straight into JSON request.body, and the request.body is the data we have in plans. If I find that file, is the one we pass in here, so we can get the plan. And then when that's done, we say plan equals data plan So then we know which plan the user have signed up to. And if plan equals small team, then we want to say price ID equals settings dot stripe price ID small team, and this price ID is the same thing as we got in the previous part. Else then price ID equals settings dot stripe price ID big team like that. Great. And then we want to get the theme for the current user, so we can just copy one of these. And then I want to use a try catch here, because it will either work and then we get the session ID, or if not, we will just return the error to the user. So try checkout session equals stripe.checkout.session.create, and here we pass in client reference ID equals team.id, and then we create the success URL, which is the one we get from the settings front-end website success URL question mark session ID. And this should just stay like this, because Stripe will fix this for us when we are redirected back. And then I want to set the cancel URL, which is just the one we set up in the settings.py file. And then I want to set payment method types, just add card here. And mode equals subscription. And line items should be a list, and then in here a dictionary. Price is price ID, so it's either small team or big team. And quantity is of course 1 in our case. So then everything there should be okay. And then below here is a return response session ID checkout session ID. Since this is something get from Stripe. And if there are an error, we can just accept exception as E, so we get an error, return response error, and then we pass this into a string E. And that's it for this view. So then we can import this to the URLs file for team. Just paste it at the end there. And then path stripe / create checkout session, pass in the view, and set the name to the same. And save. So if everything here should be okay, we still need to do more work, but it can be like this, and we can go and test. So if we open up the inspector to see here, if I now click small team, we got information from Stripe and we got redirected here. Perfect. It also set the small team and $10. But the problem is now, if we continue, the webhook will not register that the payment is okay. So we need to go back. As you can see here, we go to the cancel page, which is this now. Perfect. So then we need to set up the webhook so Stripe can talk to our website. And this is done in views.py. First I need to import two things. I need to import HTTP response. This comes from Django.http. And I also need to import a decorator from Django.views.decorators.csrf import csrf exempt. Because we are going to get a post request from Stripe, but they don't have this CSRF token for us, so we need to make it possible to send us a post request without that, but only for this view. So we add this decorator like this, and then def stripe webhook request, and then we initialize the Stripe by setting stripe.api key. And then we get the webhook key from settings as well. Settings.stripe webhook key. And payload request.body. This is information we get from Stripe. And we also get the signature header from Stripe, which you need to use in order to check that everything is okay. Event equals none. Now we can say print payload. Payload to see what information we get from Stripe. And here I want to use a try catch as well. So try event equals stripe.webhook.construct event. Pass in payload, sig header, and the webhook key. So this information is now sent to Stripe. So this is the information we get in the webhook, the signature header, and also our webhook key. Accept value error as E, then we get a value error. Return HTTP response status equals 400. But there are also an other accept error. So accept stripe.error.signature verification error. That means that there's something wrong with the signature. SE. Return HTTP response status equals 400. And then below here we can check that if the success or if the payment was successful. I do that by saying if event. This is the event we get here, and the type is this because there are many types of events there. Then in here we can say session equals event data object. Now we get this session information from Stripe. And then we want to get the theme based on the information we get back from Stripe. And to do that we say theme equals theme.object.get, where primary key is the one we get there. And this is the one we set up here, where we pass in theme.id to the current user. And then we want to set the Stripe customer ID, which you get from Stripe. And the same with the subscription ID, so we can check the subscription later, and then just call theme.save. Great. And then at the end here we can say return HTTP response status equals 200 to let Stripe know that everything went okay. So now we just need to import this to the URLs file, add it to the end there, path Stripe webhook like that. Stripe webhook, and name is also Stripe webhook, and save. So now we can test the next step here. If we try to click subscribe, so then we can go ahead and try to go ahead with the payment. So try to add my email here, and then card information. This will be a successful payment, and then just add a date in the future. CVC 123 Stein. So now click subscribe. Processing. This should look okay. And then, as you can see up here, I was redirected to the thank you page, and we got the session ID. And this we're going to use to verify the payment. Before I continue, I just want to say thanks to my Patreons. If you too want to support me, you will find a link to my Patreon in the description below. So if I now go to the console, you'll see that we got some information. Okay, they got a 404 error. That means that the webhook didn't work. API v1 Stripe webhook. Okay, let me try to check the URLs file. This should be stripe/webhook. Sorry. So I need to try this again. So if I just go back to the plans page, click subscribe, then we do this again, subscribe, and if you now follow here, this was successful, perfect, and everything there should be okay now. Great. So now we have this customer ID and similar in the database. So now we just need to check that this is okay, and then we can set the date for the end of the plan for this user. So now we can go back to views.py and create one last view here. Just copy this, paste it, and def check session. So now we want to check this session here. Request. And then we can initialize Stripe again here. And we can create a new empty variable called error. Then one more time we use the try. And then we want to get the team because we need this. So paste it in there. Then we get the subscription from the team. This should be added when we got the Stripe hook down here. So we can compare the information with what is stored with Stripe. And then we get the product, which is the big team or the small team. And if everything is okay now, we can say team.plan status equals team.plan plan active, team.plan and date equals date time dot from timestamp subscription dot current period dot underscore end. So this we get from Stripe. As you can see here now, I got this error because I haven't imported date time yet. So below here, from datetime import datetime. Scroll down again. Then we can say team.plan equals plan.objects.get name equals product.name. Product.name will either be big team or small team. And we can call team.save. And then we want to generate information about the team and send it back to the user. So we can copy this, paste it here. And if this doesn't work, we need to show an error. So exception error equals there's something wrong, please try again. And then we just say return response error, and then we pass in that error we created here and save. So then we need to import this as well to the URLs. Path stripe/check session name check session and save. But this will also need to be included up here. Save, but if I now go back here, refresh, nothing will happen because we haven't called the check session yet. So that is the next step now. So we need to find a thank you page because that's going to be done there. So plans thank you, and then inside the mounted I need to call Axios, and then we use the URL we just created, which is this, which points to the view we just created. And to the backend we want to pass in a field called session ID, which we get from the URL, and session ID that points to this parameter. So now we send that to the backend, then we get a response back. Like that. I say console.log response just to see what we get from the server. And when that's done, I want to show a toast. The plan was changed and this is its success, so it's nice and green. And when that's done, I want to update the team information. Like that. So this.store.commit.setTeam. This is the same thing as done when we are signing in. So we set the team ID, the name, the plan name, max leads and max clients. And if there are an error, .catch error. Now we want to show this as a toast as well. Like that. And we can also show the console.log error. Error, so we can show the information in the console. But that should be okay. And if you now refresh, okay, toast is not imported. So I need to find the page that has toast. there. Just copy this, go back to plans, thank you. Okay, save, and then we can go back to the Chrome. You see here we get an error from the server. Invalid syntax on views.py in the team folder. Okay, what did I do there? 125. Okay, I forgot to add a parenthesis here. So save. Now this looks okay. If I now refresh, but the plan was changed. Perfect. As you can see here, we also got this information about the team here. Great. So if I now go to team, the plan changed to small team. Perfect. So now the implementation of Stripe is finished. So now I can set the last task in the to-do list to done. See you in the next video.